All right, hey, thanks for coming to Mystery Science Theater 3000. I'm Joel Hodson. The guys at the station sent me this facsimile that the next film is called Invaders from the Deep. I don't know what should upset these people so much that they would need to invade, or what it is they're in that's so deep. Kamba, could you bring that in a little bit? Let's see. Yeah, that's good. And it's a Gene and Sylvia Anderson film. They're the same people that did Fireball XL5, if you remember that. And it stars the puppet Troy Tempest, and it looks like we've got movie sign happening, but always remember it's in Supermarionation. I'll go around, you go through.
This time we watched KTMA Episode 1, Invaders from the Deep.
A movie with acting so wooden, you'd be surprised to find out it's actually fiberglass.
Fiberglass? Huh,
Yeah.
I wouldn't have guessed.
They're all made out of fiberglass. We'll get into that in a bit. Happy Turkey Day, though, Charlotte.
Happy Turkey Day, Chris. How are you celebrating turkey this year?
Well, I might go over and see if they've actually made any bumpers for the Turkey Day Marathon over on YouTube and Twitch and everywhere else that they do that. If there's anything fancy happening, they have not talked about it, which would be a weird choice if you're trying to hype people up to watch.
No, it's totally true. Although, I mean, it is tradition. It feels like turning on the Turkey Day Marathon while you're baking a pie or putting the turkey in the oven and ramping up for guests coming over. That just feels like, it just feels right, Chris. It just feels like we're supposed to do for American Thanksgiving.
Sure. I mean, even though, you can turn on Twitch or YouTube and they always have a marathon of shows going. It is 365, 24/7.
It's just not the same. It's not the same.
It's not the same, but it's also not that different.
Okay, I will totally grant that. but yay, Turkey Day! I'm looking forward to the marathon, even if there aren't new bumpers. Although, God, what a wonderful little surprise that would be.
Sure, I'm looking forward to being surprised, but happy Turkey Day, listeners and everybody. Gobble, gobble, gobble.
Gobble, gobble, gobble.
We have a little bit of follow-up from our last episode. Listener Emma wrote in to say, Charlotte is bothered by the Faith No More fish. This is a fish that in a Faith No More video that was in a lot of visual distress at the end of one of their videos for dramatic effect that may not have been treated well on set. Mm-hmm. I, as a Misty, Emma continues, who is also a transgender woman and a devout progressive Christian who doesn't take the Bible literally and greatly dislikes conservative Christianity, am bothered by Mike Nelson. It's hard for me not to think about when I watch his episodes.
Granted, like I feel like you and I have also talked about how, and especially you, Chris, like for sure have put out there that the kinds of jokes that Mike Nelson tends to make in later seasons, and as he transitioned into riff tracks, really are not palatable for you. And I would agree, like a lot of them are really, really bothersome and offensive.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a perfectly reasonable position to have about who Mike has turned out to be and what he's done in the world. I think it is a complicated thing, as we talked about last time, when somebody that you admire the work of turns out not to be a great person.
Yeah.
And I'm going to say anybody can choose whether a particular creator, to use the terrible internet term, has gone over the line, is too awful to deal with, is somebody who is awful, but you can still sort of separate that part of them from the work, or you can still appreciate some of the things they've done, even if you don't want to financially support them or don't want to have dinner with them anymore or whatever. Like, there are all sorts of positions that you can have on that.
Yeah, but I do think that Emma's point is important. Like, she's saying we need to pay attention to that part of and still remain in those feelings of being bothered by the terrible things he's saying. While, we at It's Just a Show will also have to try and find some of the lighter moments as well.
Well, on that note, let's talk about an episode that comes from well before Mike was part of the family, so to speak, and therefore we didn't have to spend Thanksgiving having awkward conversation with him.
Yes, awkward Uncle Mike.
Exactly. Let's look at an episode of a puppet show where they make fun of another puppet show. This time we watched KTMA Episode 1, Invaders from the Deep. Right, so first things first. This is a bunch of episodes of a 60s TV show stitched together into a movie of sorts. So, our heroes this time are the crew of the Stingray, a submarine that's part of the World Aquanaut Security Patrol, or WASP. Oh dear. Anyway, it's led by Troy Tempest. He's helped out by a guy who goes by Phones, and they've got a friend on board. Say hello, Marina. Oh, she can't. She can't speak at all. Marina is from under the sea, and at one point she'd been enslaved by the evil King Titan, an aquamphibian. Now, Titan, I guess, had a thing for Marina, but now she and Troy are becoming an item, and so, naturally, Titan is declaring war on all the people of the Earth, the Terranians, and Troy in particular. He sends one of his aquamphibian warriors, Gadeth, to set a trap for Troy, but after a series of mishaps, Troy and friends eventually win out. Then, unrelatedly, the WASP base in Marineville is attacked by a rogue missile. But after a series of mishaps, Troy and his friends eventually win out. Then, unrelatedly, an undersea people aim missiles at the west coast of the USA. But, after a series of mishaps, Troy and his friends eventually win out. Then, unrelatedly, the Stingray is lured to the remains of an underwater civilization miles beneath the ocean floor, where the last two survivors try to steal the Stingray to escape before a volcano explodes. But, after a series of mishaps, Troy and his friends eventually win out, and even save those two survivors. Then, finally, the alleged movie reaches the end.
Meanwhile, on the Satellite of Love, it's Joel, alone on the Satellite of Love, welcoming us to the show and introducing today's movie. He's just received details of it from the station via facsimile. Okay, Joel gives us directions for how to join him in the theater, and we begin our journey through the door sequence. Will Joel remain alone on the satellite the whole episode? No. Here comes Crow. He's back from Kokomo. Joel has some inventions he's been working on, so of course he shares this with his old friend. One is a tree with chomper teeth, so, that's fun. The other is a big beach ball that inflates out of a motorcycle helmet, so motorcycle riders have airbags too in the event of a crash. Crow says being a human must be such a rush. Maybe? At movie break, Joel gives us a tour of the satellite, starting with some of the flora on board. There are lovely little vacuum flowers in the section we're moving through, but they seem to be very sick. Why, there's foam leaking out of them everywhere. Joel calls in GPC to bring his doctor stuff so he can heal the plants. But wouldn't you know it, she gets sick and starts foaming everywhere too. So Joel calls in Crow and Beeper to help him with GPC. At another movie break, we check in on the satellite inhabitants. People of Earth, Joel says. People of Earth. They are all sick. All the robot, all the plant life, even Joel, too. There's so much foam being sprayed everywhere, like it's, sick mucus type stuff. It's kind of gross, actually. When the movie ends, we return to the main deck of the satellite to see that Joel is feeling better. He lets us know that we can call a phone number and leave him a message, and he might even read it on the air. Joel even has one more invention to share, a bagpipe vacuum so you can play the bagpipes and sing at the same time, which of course Joel demonstrates by playing Amazing Grace and Whole Lotta Love. Crow and Joel discuss the nature of illness and, just being in general. Like, what is reality? Is this just a show? Also, we close with Crow getting sick and foaming up the ship. He, saved it for a dramatic finish. What do you think, sirs?
It's the very first episode ever aired of Mystery Science Theater 3000, coming at you live Thanksgiving Day, 1988.
Oh, it's like its birthday.
Coming at you live is probably inaccurate. They had filmed it a few weeks prior. What a wild thing it would have been to catch this episode when it first aired. I think I would not have watched the entire episode myself.
Oh, Chris, I don't know. If you were going to KTMA to watch a movie, you're not going to see a great movie, right? You're not turning on your local television station to watch the movie of the week thinking you're going to see a masterpiece. Although, I don't know, Humanoid Woman kind of was a masterpiece, but I digress. I mean, you would turn this on thinking you're going to watch some weird thing, and now you got a friend who's watching the show with you and kind of commenting as he goes. It must have been so novel, right? How much preparation would they have made? Would I, as a viewer who could turn into KTMA, would I know the show was coming on?
Oh, if I remember correctly, there were some ads in the paper and there were some, TV spots telling people that it was going to be happening. But I don't know. I don't know if you'd be fully prepared for it.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. I mean, it seems like such a common thing now. I mean, now if you have somebody who comes on the screen and is commenting on a movie that's going, it doesn't jar us. And I wonder how jarring people would have found it in Minnesota in 1988,
Yeah, I mean, they certainly ease you into it, right? Joel comes into the theater, doesn't say very much for quite a long time, makes the occasional odd comment, eats some popcorn and drinks some soda drinks or something.
Yeah, he makes a lot of noise eating. I was really surprised by that, Chris.
Well, they don't know yet. They're trying things out. They're seeing what works and what doesn't. And, if you have a friend sitting next to you, they're going to eat and you're going to not hear it. But if it does come from the TV set, it is significantly more noticeable.
It really was so noticeable. As I was watching it, I was thinking, oh my gosh, I have a friend who has that thing where when you hear people eat, it just kind of revolts you, there's a syndrome. I can't remember what the name of it is.
Misophonia or something.
Yeah, thank you, misophonia, and something like that. And I just remember thinking as I was watching it, oh my God, Joel, anybody who has that, who's watching episode 1 is this is it for me.
Well, that wouldn't have been my issue that would have turned it off. I actually, and we'll talk about this in a moment, I find the Supermarionettes of the Jerry and Sylvia Anderson shows to be really uncanny and unpleasant to watch.
Oh.
I always thought this even when I was a kid. I respect the artistry. We'll talk about it in a bit.
Sure.
But the way people talk about the Polar Express and how much that bothers them, that doesn't bother me nearly as much as these little marionettes do.
Interesting. I don't think I would have turned the show off because I think honestly, if I was a KTMA viewer, I would have been turning it on to have something playing while I was, preparing for Thanksgiving or waiting for people to be coming over or I mean, I don't know. I don't know if this would have been the event I was looking forward to after reading about it in the paper which was probably delivered to my front door. I mean, oh my gosh, what a different world it was.
I mean, I might have also watched it because I was a fan of hometown hero Joel Hodgson, who'd been on SNL and had his own comedy special and made all the funny little props. And, maybe I would have been a big fan of him and gone out of my way to see his TV show idea. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, and, the segments in between the movie where he's showing you his funny inventions and stuff, They're pretty funny. They're funny enough that like Joel and the cast brought them back again and again.
Yeah, the electric bagpipes in particular, that is the same thing he uses for the Invention Exchange in season 1, episode 1.
Yes, it is. And he even does the same 2 songs, Amazing Grace and Whole Lot of Love. But he does have the bot singing with him a little bit more inside of season 1. They had the Tom Servo going on, so they had to use him as much as possible.
Sure. And of course, I'm pretty sure that was part of his stand-up act as well. But yeah, otherwise, I don't know. Did you enjoy this episode more or less than other KTMA episodes we've watched?
As I said, I think Humanoid Woman is the best of the KTMA episodes that we've seen so far, if only because the movie itself was really interesting.
Sure.
And I'm remembering, as far as that episode goes, I'm remembering the movie a lot more than I'm remembering the riffs or any of the MST3K treatment that happened to it. And maybe that's part of it. But yeah, I haven't minded the KTMA episodes, but they're not really as awesome as some of the later episodes are going to be, right? They're still kind of finding their way. And the show, I think I was telling you about this off pod, just like the Marionette show, the first episode of it, as I was watching, it was just like, oh, this is cute, and I really enjoy the story, and it's going really well. And then as it kept going and had the same beats for the storyline, and it had the same kind of issues coming up again and again, by the 4th or the 5th reiteration of, mishaps occur and Troy goes up just fine, like, by the 4th or 5th time, I was just like, yeah, this isn't a show that improves upon binge watching. This is actually a show that was really fun the first episode. And if they had just riffed like little 20-minute versions and then it was the end of the show, I think this would have been a much more successful use of the Supermarionation episodes. But I don't know. Yeah, it doesn't work as a movie, but as a TV episode, I could see that this would have been actually really engaging. I think I would have enjoyed it as a kid.
Okay, well, we'll talk about that in a moment. But I will say it is wild also to see a pristine copy of a KTMA era episode, like straight from the master tapes.
Yes.
Both the movie is beautiful and flawless, which is great because it is beautiful in many ways, despite the uncanny valley stuff that I don't care for. Sure. And also, the episode itself is also pristine, is also, you get to really appreciate the handful of episodes we have of Joel with his long hair.
Oh my God, I love his long hair. It's so 80s. It reminds me of like Mark Singer's hair inside a V. Oh my gosh, it's so good.
Well, and of course, we didn't have this episode for a long time, right? Famously, within MST3K circles at least, the first 3 episodes of the KTMA era we did not have for many, many years, despite all the tape traders of people who'd found their old copies of KTMA era episodes. But this one and the following one, which, by the way, is also Supermarionation. So get ready, get excited for when we do K02 someday.
I'm going to love the first half hour, but none of it.
Those 2 episodes were released as Kickstarter rewards back in 2016, and then we could suddenly glory in them. And I wish we had more of the masters available for more of the KTMA episodes, because it would be really fascinating to see exactly how much of the bad film print is due to tape copy and VHS deterioration versus what they actually had at the time. And it just would be nicer to watch.
It's true, because almost every one of these KTMA episodes, you've gone and tried to watch the original version of the movie rather than relying solely on what it looks like on the tape that we're sharing together. So I know you've gone off to see like, well, what does this movie actually look like?
And like the fans have found better copies than when I started seeing them, which is amazing. So we are getting slightly improved copies all the time. Well, not all the time, but we have gotten slightly improved copies sometimes. And that's super nice. But like, but I don't know. I don't know if we have access to any of them. And I don't know if they're going to go out of their way to clear the rights for them like they must have done for this in order to distribute it. I think they had to have gotten the rights to do this. I don't know.
I mean, if they're giving it away as a Kickstarter reward, do they? I mean, they're not airing it publicly, right? As the Kickstarter, giving it copies to people? Is this like when they told everybody, you got a copy of a movie with a giant lizard monster in your DVD pack. You need to just throw that away and replace it with this one.
Right. I don't know. I think legally this counts as publishing, but I'm not a lawyer. And that was a situation where they earnestly believed they had the rights, and then turns out they didn't, and they got a cease and desist, and they did the best that they could.
Yeah, well, and which totally makes sense.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it just seems like I know a lot of the movies for KTMA, they did again in later seasons. So they must have gone back and talked about getting rights to those particular movies in the future, right? When they did it in later seasons, why not include the KTMA era inside of that so that you could release it at some point in time?
Yeah. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if Shout has done some of that legwork just in case. Mm-hmm. But some of them are going to be probably trickier than others because they didn't get the rights properly during the KTMA era, is my understanding. They just used whatever films KTMA was already able to show as like a Friday night movie kind of thing.
Yeah, which makes sense.
Yeah, they figured that was good enough, which it isn't, especially if you're trying to put it out on DVD.
Sure. Now, especially, right? Because if you're releasing something, it's very publicly available to find out what's being published. So,
yep.
I don't know. I had two things about the episode that I wanted to talk a little bit about that are about the characters inside of the Invaders from the Deep.
Okay.
One of which you said his name is Phones.
Yeah, I know. It sounds like they're saying Bones, but it's Phones.
I thought it was Bones only because they're clearly making Troy a Captain Kirk type, right?
Sure. Yeah.
So it kind of surprised me. So of course I heard Bones, right? Because it's just like I'm hearing William Shatner say it.
Of course. Now, keep in mind, this is several years before Star Trek.
Oh, I didn't realize that, actually. I don't think I put that together.
It's 1964, yes.
Oh, well, there you go. They stole the idea of Bones.
But also, you might have noticed that Phones has giant headphones on the whole time.
Sure, but,
I heard Bones as well. It wasn't until I started reading up on it that I realized it was Phones, and I was like, oh, that makes more sense.
I guess. I don't know. The other character I wanted to talk about was Marina.
Uh-huh.
So Marina is... she's like an underwater person who they've recruited to be a part of WASP, which, oh my God, what the heck, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And then, they've recruited her, so she must be this really, she must have amazing skills, right? Like, they've recruited her away, and they bring her with them on their missions all the time. Mm-hmm. And she does have amazing skills, right? Like, she can be underwater, she can breathe underwater, she can withstand huge amounts of pressure underwater. Like, she clearly has amazing skills. And yet, in the show, she does nothing but sit in the background, and then she'll try and help, but she just gets captured and damseled, and they have to save her. It drove me insane. This was a beat that happened about every 20 minutes inside of the movie. And it was just like, I can't handle this. It bothered me so much, Chris. I don't know if it bothered you.
Of course it did. I mean, I thought it was fascinating that they would have a character who doesn't speak at all. I guess that saves on voice actors.
Sure. And it's a really interesting concept, right? I mean, it's, yeah.
And I should add, the idea is that her entire species doesn't speak.
Oh, but she doesn't look like she has a super big brain for telepathy or anything like that.
I didn't watch the episode where they introduce her, and so I didn't find out. Which, by the way, if you didn't check this out on your own, it's worth looking on YouTube or something so that you can hear the Stingray opening theme song, because it's great. Just
awesome.
Like all the Supermarionation TV shows have great theme songs. And in fact, I think we should jump over and start talking about them now.
Excellent.
Supermarionation. Did you grow up with this stuff?
I don't remember growing up with it, but who the heck knows, right?
Well, it's pretty memorable, I think.
The Bay Area had a whole bunch of bumper things that they had in between cartoons that involved puppets. And so I don't know if I would have seen this as a separate show or if I would have just had that run together in my mind as part of those puppet bumpers. But I don't know. It's it's a cool story, right? Like you have people who are, defending the world against Atlanteans and people who live under the sea and stuff. And Like, it looks really cool. I think I would have enjoyed it as a kid, but I don't have distinct memories of it.
So Supermarionation was a term invented by a guy named Jerry Anderson, who, with his wife Sylvia Anderson, basically created a bunch of TV shows in the 60s. And they were all made with this Supermarionation method, which is super marionette animation. It's just all mashed together. It's to make it seem fancy.
So what does that mean, Supermarionation? How is it different than just a regular marionette?
Right. Well, you may have noticed that the mouths move really nicely.
That's true.
And that's because after they'd made their first couple of puppet shows, they got really frustrated with how moving the mouth along to someone who was speaking came out really bad. It was hard to sync up, and it would often drift after a while and made the editing a nightmare and so forth. So they were very clever. Jerry and the people that he picked up were very clever technical wizards, and they basically had a little device inside the mouth of the marionette puppets that ran on a solenoid, and they would record the audio first, like you were doing animation. Most animation is done. And then they'd play it in the studio where they were filming the marionettes, the puppets, and one of the wires going into the marionettes would be the sound. And when the person's voice was speaking, it would cause the mouth to flap.
Oh, so that made the whole editing of the sound so much easier to do.
Yeah, it was very fussy to calibrate the solenoid just right so that it wouldn't just open its mouth and keep it open the whole time or flap, 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 flap nonstop.
Sure.
But, it was worth it in the end, they decided. They were willing to put in the long hours to make this as good a product as they could because a lot of them were really motivated to try to do a good job with what they were doing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you think about I know that you have the uncanny thing and this is just not for you, but like the sets are really beautiful. They're very colorful. They're very bold.
The sets are so beautiful. Yeah.
They're doing some really interesting things with, cutting between having a quote unquote underwater scene, but then also having the same kind of device on water so that it looks more real. Like they're doing great things with waves. Like they're super thoughtful about how they're putting all of this together and what the presentation looks like. I'm not surprised that they were really interested in creating a quality looking product.
It's also interesting that because the faces are a bit lifeless, they would have to cut away a lot. So like you probably didn't even notice it because nowadays we're accustomed to a lot of edits, and it's not as much edits as you've probably seen a lot of kids' TV shows today.
Yeah.
But like compared with other shows from 1964, this had a lot of edits in it.
Huh. Oh, that's interesting. Which makes sense if what you're trying to do is take away from looking at a face that has very little change.
Yeah, because the important thing to remember when you watch these shows, the thing you need to remember is that Jerry Anderson hated puppets.
Oh my gosh.
Hated it, wanted to be doing real stuff, wanted to be Steven Spielberg, wanted to work with real people.
Oh my gosh.
Hated the fact that he was working with puppets.
That's so unfortunate because I think that he put together a team that created a high quality product. I mean, the storylines could be better. Let's all acknowledge that. But like he's got some interesting characters. He's got some beautiful sets. He's got some, monster of the week type conflict that's happening. But in terms of like making a kid show with puppets, pre-Muppet Show, pre-Sesame Street, like before all of these other like big puppet shows that we think of, like this is amazing in so many ways. It's miles away from like, Charlie McCarthy or something like that, where you have people and puppets on the stage at the same time.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I watched a documentary about this, which is available on YouTube now, called Filmed in Supermarionation. And a lot of the people who used to work with him were arguing that basically because he hated it so much, he tried to make it look as good as possible. And there was a really interesting tension between this. Like, he pushed for all sorts of advances and to make everything look amazing because he hated the fundamental fact that he was making puppet shows for kids.
I think about how terrible it would be if Joel hated making a puppet show. You know what I mean? Because he's made a great one. Like, number one in our hearts. You know what I mean? But what if Joel hated puppets?
Well, he'd probably walk away from the show after a few years.
But he did walk away from the show after a few years, Chris. I don't think that's proof that he hates puppets. I think he still loved puppets, but it's just such an interesting thought that, like, somebody who's so fundamentally at the forefront of making something like this happen wasn't able to love his own product.
Yeah, it was just the thing that was making him money at the time. When he got a chance to start working on live action stuff, he really stopped paying attention to the Supermarionation company. And eventually he and Sylvia made Space 1999, from which the KTMA episode Cosmic Princess came from. So, we've talked a little bit about them before, but it's definitely worth talking about them some more.
Nice.
One of the reasons, by the way, that the heads are so big is that they had to fit all the solenoid equipment.
Oh.
Now, of course, it was also an aesthetic choice. It allowed them to do more of a caricature thing sometimes, but also it meant that when things looked a little janky, because it's marionettes, and marionettes famously can't walk very convincingly.
It's true, yes.
It was more okay because they're clearly puppets.
Yeah.
Right? So it's fine. You sort of accept that as part of what you're seeing.
Yeah. It's funny because watching this, I didn't think of them at all as having large heads, because this is just what marionettes look like in my mind.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, they have heads that are proportionally too large for their bodies. But because that's the way marionette puppets have always looked to me, it doesn't look weird.
Yeah. By the way, it's a show from 1964. Does anything strike you about that?
Should it?
Possibly, because what you may not have realized when you're watching a show that you may not have realized was from 1964, or the reason you may not have thought it was quite that old, is because it's in color.
Oh, I didn't even think about that. Yeah, I mean, it's one of the most striking things about the set is that it is so colorful. I mean, I think one of the riffs say it looks like 10,000 Leagues Under the Sea. And I'm like, yes, it does. It looks like that ride in Disneyland where you have all of these colorful things that you see right outside of the windows of the submarine. But I wouldn't have even thought, I wouldn't even thought about that, Chris. Like, the entire time I grew up, I always grew up with a color television. So it's not weird for a TV show to be in color for me. But if my father had been watching this at the age of 14, they didn't have a color set. He would have been watching this in black and white.
Well, and amazingly, when the show started going out, ITV, the British network that aired it, didn't broadcast in color yet. It would be a few more months after the show started before they actually were able to broadcast colored signals.
Oh my gosh. Like, how did they know that this was going to work on a black and white television?
Well, they did know that. Jerry and Sylvia had gone across the Atlantic to the World's Fair in New York City, and they saw, I think it's Kodak, had put out some color film, and they realized this is the future. Like, if you make a black and white show, you're not going to be able to get it syndicated for much longer. Whereas if you make a color show, you might be able to syndicate that for years and years and years, which in fact turned out to be the case, right?
Yes. So smart of them. They're such good business people.
So then they went back and they convinced the person who was paying for it to let them do it in color, which was phenomenally expensive. And then they had to learn how to film in color. They had to repaint everything several times to find out what would look good on the film stock. And, I mean, they've been showing color movies and so forth on TV long enough that they knew that was a thing you could do. But
that's so interesting.
So wild. And also, you might have heard me say there that this was made in the UK. This is made in Slough for fans of Slough out there.
Go Slough.
And yet, not a lot of British accents amongst the voices you hear.
That's true.
Because they made most of their money selling to the American market. They sold it sort of in a lot of markets, but the money they got from the US dwarfed all the other countries combined.
Familiar faces, familiar faces, familiar faces, familiar faces, familiar faces.
So I want to do a few little familiar faces before we move on from this. It's familiar voices, I suppose. Mm-hmm. There's two people who have somewhat notable careers outside of these.
The voice of Marina. No, I'm just kidding.
Exactly. One of them is Atlanta, the other woman.
The daughter of the guy who is tootling around on a motorized wheelchair.
Type thing, yeah. Exactly. She is voiced by Lois Maxwell, who played Miss Moneypenny in all the early Bond films up to A View to the Kill in the 80s.
Ooh, that's awesome.
It's very cool. Also, many of the characters in Stingray, I'm not 100% sure in the 4 episodes that we see in this movie, but many minor characters, are voiced by a guy named David Graham, who would come to much more prominence in Thunderbirds, playing Parker, who is the servant of Lady Penelope, who was the breakout character from that show. Anyway, he would go on to be one of the 2 guys who would voice the Daleks in early Doctor Who.
Oh, Exterminate, right?
Yeah,
Them?
and now he voices Grandpa Pig in Peppa Pig.
Oh my goodness. Well, finally, he gets to use that accent and influence everybody in the world. I mean, Peppa Pig famously making all Americans suddenly have a British accent.
And, of course, Jerry and Sylvia Anderson, who for some reason Joel calls Gene and Sylvia Anderson in the opening, but we all make mistakes sometimes.
Sure, yeah.
They would later give their names to Jerry and Sylvia, the mole people who work at Deep 13 in Season 2 and a little bit of Season 3.
Good job, Mystery Science Theater 3000, making some really good callbacks to Season 0.
Yeah, or just, the great puppet shows of the past.
True.
So a while ago, we looked at some of the first episodes. The first episode of Season 1, the first episode with Mike, and the first episode with Jonah. And this was a while ago. It was back when Adam and Beth were the hosts. But we looked at how they introduced the show, what they did to set the stage, to explain what was going on, to welcome people into this world so that they were orientated and all that great stuff.
Yeah.
And what was fascinating about this episode was that they didn't really do any of that.
No, they really didn't. It felt like a K2May viewer would just have been tuning into the weekly movie, and there was just a little spice added, but it wasn't very different from a normal movie of the week experience. Although I guess that progressively got a little bit more involved as the episode went on.
Yeah, I felt like they were gradually introducing elements where, you start off with just an explanation of the show and that we're going to be watching it now, and then we go into the theater and then Joel's there and he doesn't say very much for the first couple segments, and then come back out, and then Crow's there and we get some interaction and Crow joins him in the theater, and then there's a bit more talking and a bit more making fun, and by the end of it, like, you get a sense of what the show might be aiming for, that it's going to be using the films to hang a bunch of jokes about and have some sketches occasionally, but like that is not there at the beginning at all, nor is any kind of like world building.
It was very strange because, we talked about this in the Green Slime episode. The bumpers in the Green Slime episode do a lot to try and set up who Joel is and why he's there watching the movie with you.
Yeah, that was the unaired pilot. That was the sort of proof of concept video that they made, or at least the host segments from it. And absolutely, there you introduce the show, just like you do in any of these other situations where it's like, hey, people of Earth, I'm here with some robots of my own design, and this is what we're doing, and I'm going to be watching these movies. They hadn't invented the mats yet. Like, not all the lore was in place.
Sure, it's fine.
But like, there was a much more of an introduction to what the heck is going on than we get in this one. I don't know. I find it very fascinating. I wonder how much of this was intentional or not. The fact that they're going to be showing 2 episodes back to back on the first night, immediately after this one, episode 2 follows. So that's 4 hours of Supermarionation jammed into movies.
Oh my gosh. That's really hard for me to fathom because once again, like, and I could be an anomaly here, granted, but like this doesn't binge well.
Well, especially because there's no arc.
Yes. Well, it does, but it doesn't become more charming by having more of the episodes back to back to back to back, right? Like, I don't know, we live in the world of the binge right now. That, like, this is what Netflix has brought to us, this idea that, like, you release an entire season of something and people sit down and they watch it without ever leaving their TVs. They take their devices with them into the restroom so they don't don't have to stop watching because they're binging something all at once. And you're watching, and it could be a TV show, right? Where you're watching episode after episode after episode. And it might be like Buffy, where you have just a monster of the week situation with very little arc over multiple episodes. I mean, obviously, like the better binges have some sort of an arc. And these 4 episodes that we have for Invaders of the Deep, like it doesn't enhance its viewing to see so many in a row. I have a hard time imagining having this for 4 hours instead of just 2, because 2 was too much for me.
Sure. I think part of it isn't just that I don't even know if it's that the show is bad for binging, but they also cut out some important parts, right? They cut out the theme song, which the theme song is pretty great. All these theme songs are great. Go check them out if you don't know them on YouTube. You can find them. But also they cut out sort of I didn't go watch the original episodes to make sure they were there, but like, It seems like there should be a beat at the end where it's like, well, we sure solved that one. Everything's fine now.
Which they do in the very last bit of it, where they're all back in the bar and they're like, oh, we saved the world for the next 20 minutes.
Yeah. And so they're doing it every week because this is not the most, structurally varied show. But because you don't get that, you're just like immediately launched into the setup of the next crisis. And so none of the payoffs pay off. So it's incredibly frustrating in that way.
I mean, I kind of get that if you're putting 4 of these episodes together to make them a movie, that you wouldn't want to have the payoff until the very end of the movie.
100%.
But as you say, it would almost help for my viewing pleasure, if you will, to have like a beat at the end of those so that we do know that something's been wrapped up. Because I don't know, in your movie summary, you're talking about how, and then unrelatedly, this happens. And that's what it feels like.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like something that is cohesive.
Yeah, MST3K would go on to do a lot of TV show compilations masquerading as movies, and this is one of the least convincing as a movie.
Quite unfortunately, because again, as I said, like it's the show is beautiful. It's
Sure.
really well done. There are lots of charming aspects.
So the other thing that I'm thinking of is the fact that like they made these episodes, and my understanding is that when they made these episodes, they didn't have the title sequence yet, and they didn't have the theme song yet. Of course, they didn't have the title sequence yet because they edited that from bits of the first couple episodes.
Yeah.
But like they didn't even have the theme song recorded yet, even though the show was going to be airing in a few weeks. So like maybe they looked at what they had made and realized that they actually needed to introduce it more, and they let the theme song do that work. I mean, I think they would have wanted that kind of narrative, Brady Bunch-esque, let's tell the story of the plot, like, because that's fun, and those are the best theme songs anyways.
It's true.
But, like, I wonder if that was even more underlined when they realized that they simply don't tell anyone what's going on.
But of course, we're introducing characters, but their concept of the show had to come from somewhere, Chris.
Yeah, a while ago when we looked at the green slime and the proof of concept pilot that never aired, we got a message from someone, and I don't remember who, and I can't find it now, so I'm sorry, but you're cool. And I think we mentioned it before, saying that one of the inspirations for the show that we should have checked out for the green slime, and it's true, we should have, but we were busy or sick or something when we did that.
We were traveling cross country.
That's right. We had just finished up driving across the country. We were a little tired, but that's okay. We still should have done it. Anyway, Joel took a lot of inspiration from a film called Silent Running.
Which I watched, and which you watched as well, right?
I have now seen Silent Running finally.
Do you want to give like an overview of the movie for our listeners who haven't seen it?
Sure. It's a movie from 1972, and it really wears that on its sleeve because it's about ecology and stuff like that. There's an ecological disaster on Earth, and this guy named Lowell, specifically his first name is Freeman Lowell, which is a bit on the nose, but that's okay. Played by Bruce Dern, of all people. We'll get into that.
Also on the nose.
Kind of. He's been stationed on a spaceship just outside of Saturn, tending to a handful of remaining greenhouses because on Earth, there's nothing of interest. It has been flattened and paved over, and there are no forests left.
No, they talk about this like it's always 75 degrees everything is beautiful. There's zero nature. All of the food is made in like replica machines, like Star Trek style. It's wild to think what Earth is like in the future.
Exactly. And so then the government gives the order that the remaining forest greenhouses out in space have to be destroyed, have to be nuked, so that the ships can be used for commercial shipping purposes. And Lowell is like, so he kills all his crewmates.
Mm-hmm.
And then he kind of escapes from notice and reprograms the bots to help him out and tries to tend to the garden. And his mental health deteriorates, let's say, while he's up there for a while.
Sure. I mean, to the point where the man who's been in space gardening for years forgets that the sun is an important part of plant health.
Yep.
That just seemed like, of all of the plot beats, that was the one that was the most shocking.
Yeah. What did you think of this movie?
I really liked the bots. They're not as cute as the ones on the Satellite of Love. There's no question. But they're really cute with their little beepy booping and everything. Bruce Dern, his character is kind of an asshole.
Oh, yeah.
But in every way, I'm sitting there looking at him going like, you're right. Like, what is going on here that the Earth created these things in order to have basically biomes of all of the different kinds of biomes that are on Earth so that they could keep it. And there's animals and plants and there's soil, like everything. Like there's a desert biome, there's a forest biome, right? Like, so you got to assume like all of these things that are hanging off of the ships, because there's like 4 or 5 ships that all have biomes on them. And I don't think Lowell's in charge of all of them. But like, why would you go through all of that work to have these and then just be like, fuck it, let's just blow this shit up? Like, it's just the weirdest decision for a government to make.
Yeah, but that's capitalism for you.
Sure, and I get capitalism, blah, blah, blah. But like, it really just boggles the mind, because I think in the beginning of the movie when they're expecting a transmission to come in, and Lowell's like, I think they're going to bring me back so that we can have real stuff on Earth again. And the 3 guys are like, I think they're shutting this down and they're sending us all home. And it turns out the 3 guys were right.
Yep.
Lowell was completely wrong. I'm with him. Like, it's just wild that this would be the decision that they make. But I also cannot believe. I mean, I understand, like, he has such big conviction about this being an important thing to keep going that he's willing to kill for it.
Mm-hmm.
But then he can't live with the fact that he's killed for it.
Well, he has difficulty with it, yeah, but...
Here's the part that bothered me the most about the movie, though. The Joan Baez singing in the soundtrack. That was the part that was hardest for me. Like, I feel like it was like, for those of you in the listening audience who watched the Disney movie Pocahontas, there's a part of the movie Pocahontas where she's going in a canoe down the river and she's singing about painting with all the colors of the wind and like talking about the beauty of nature, but also about how it's all going to be completely destroyed and we need to protect it. And this is what Joan Baez was doing. And I just can't handle that kind of emotional sincerity about the environment, I guess. I don't know what it is, but it just, I can't. It made me want to shut down and turn off the movie because I'm just like, I can't listen to Joan Baez again.
Joan Baez has done some amazing stuff out there. She's very talented. She's done a lot of great work with music and done a lot of great work with activism. But sometimes she's very sincere and she's singing in her piercing vibrato.
Yes.
It's pure sine waves in the ear.
Yes.
And it is a little much sometimes.
It was just too much for me. I believe in everything she was singing about. It was just too much. It was too overwhelming. It was too hitting me on the head with this movie is about saving the planet. And if you're not for saving the planet, you hate the planet. And it's just like, okay, Joan, I get it. I do, but it's too much right now. And it breaks in at the most inopportune moments. Anyway, that was the hardest part of the movie for me. Not him killing.
No, him killing is fine. That's fine. I mean, the fact that it also is coming often after, like, there's an early scene where Lowell is talking with the other guys before killing them, and they're like eating the synth food, and he's making fun of them, and they're like, "What's so good about a cantaloupe? It looks weird and disgusting, and it came from the dirt, and that's gross."
And it
he's
smells, bleh, food that smells, bleh.
And he's like, "Well, it's real and it's meaningful, and it's like nature is important, and you gotta, like, there are kids who grow up not touching a leaf, and that's so vital and important." And he keeps going on like this, and it's like, okay, this is a religious argument.
Huh.
And I'm not saying it's necessarily wrong. I'm not saying it's bad to touch leaves and that it doesn't do you good sometimes or whatever.
Sure.
And I'm not trying to go against his conviction, but like, he's not arguing anything that makes sense. He's not even arguing that it's healthier for you. He's just saying it is inherently in itself good. And okay, maybe it is. I'm not even saying that's wrong necessarily. I'm saying that's a terrible argument in this case. The movie is filled with this terrible argument about it's the most anti-environmental environmentalist movie I've ever seen. The movie doesn't even seem to hear what it's saying. It's saying that there are no forests on the earth.
And that nobody cares.
And it's fine. Everyone's fine. People are living fine. They have enough of an evolved and elaborate ecosystem, so to speak, still going on, that they're able to maintain a space program out to Saturn. Like, okay, then clearly none of that environment mattered. And even by the end of the movie, like, this little bit of environment that he's saving is being held up by so much technological infrastructure, they have to even replace the sun with light bulbs. And by the end of it, he sends the dome off to protect it with one of the bots taking care of it. There is no more human involvement on this.
Nope.
And presumably the electricity is going to keep going on somehow, but like, we're not asking about that. Like,
no.
It's all technology based. This is a technological marvel in his wild forest that looks nothing like a wild forest and everything like a fancy garden.
It does look like a really fancy garden. A fancy garden where it's a forest with pine trees, but it also grows cantaloupes simultaneously. It's
wild.
Such a mishmash because all the other domes seem like such amazing biomes. Yeah, I mean, there are some arguments that he makes about how everything on Earth is boring. And this is what the guys that are coming up on these 6-month stints are saying. Just like, nobody cares about anything.
Here's the thing. I don't believe him because he only cares about whether they care about the environment. That's the only thing Lowell cares about.
Sure. He has like one thing that he thinks is important. And you know what? He does it really well. I get like, they just took your job and everything. But like, I understand what he's saying about this and how important the forest is to him, but at some point in time when they created this program, the forest was important enough to everybody on Earth as well that they saw that it was threatened and created these biomes and launched them into space so that no matter what happened on Earth, this natural part of the earth would continue on. So it's astonishing, like Lowell must be the only being left with a connection to that original thought, right? That the earth was going to die or become a monolith or something, and the things that were diverse and beautiful about it had to be preserved in some way. And it could only be preserved by sending it off-world.
Yeah. Ugh.
I know. It's super weird.
But I will say, it's a very pretty film.
Parts of it, yeah.
It was directed by Douglas Trumbull, who did the special effects for 2001, and it shows. And it was fun to see some of the connections between this movie and MST3K, like how some of the spaceships looked a little bit like the Satellite of Love, like how Bruce Dern is wearing a big old jumpsuit the whole time.
It's true. And how he programs like personality into his robots and has to teach them to interact with him, which Joel must have had to do at some point in time when he made his friends out of those special parts.
And he's got Joel's hair from the first couple episodes of the show.
That is such a lovely part.
So that was a lot of fun discussion about this, that, and the other. But is there another other that we could talk about before we go?
Yes, Chris, I wanted to bring up an other thing. And I wanted to bring up something inspired by the riffs, because we totally haven't really done that yet.
All right. Remind me of one of the riffs.
Okay, so about an hour in, Crow turns to Joel and he asks,
Joel, do we have any
Stingray
bear nuts
crew
left?
standing by for launch, Commander.
Okay, sound launch station.
Yes, sir.
So Joel's been eating in the theater. I think we mentioned that. And so part of what's happening, they're also talking about food. And so Crow's asking about beer nuts. I have never eaten beer nuts. Have you ever had beer nuts?
Yes.
What? When did you have beer nuts? Why didn't you share?
I don't know. They weren't that exciting.
Oh.
I'm pretty sure I've had beer nuts. I remember them being a thing that, well, first off, I might have had beer nuts and not known it because they might have been served with beer at a bar because they're kind of bar snack food, essentially. They're sadly, they're not like truck nuts. They're not something that you attach to your beer koozie to make it a little bit more, I don't know, butch. They are a snack that you have along with beer. So it's like, they're like salty or sweet and salty peanuts.
They're
something
both.
like that.
They're sweet and salty.
Yeah. It's been a while since I've had them, and I did spend a while sort of wanting to have them because I never saw them at the stores or anything. I think when I finally did have them, I found them sort of weirdly like thin tasting, watery tasting. It just wasn't the taste sensation I was hoping for.
Because everything so I was looking up beer nuts. I went to the company website, which, by the way, beer nuts, still a family-owned business out of Illinois.
All right.
Yes, Bloomington, Illinois. It's from just an old, caramel crisps shop that some family owned in the 30s. And they created the beer nuts. Originally, it wasn't called beer nuts, but they started selling it to bars inside of the area.
Originally called beer testicles.
They were not. Jeez, no, it was called somebody's salty nuts. Yeah, no. Originally, it was called Shirk's Glazed Peanuts.
Wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Yeah, I know. I feel like we have to have some sort of a sweaty balls thing going on, right? But no, Shirk's Glazed Peanuts, they started selling them to local bars so much that they started calling them beer nuts because it turns out when people drink beer, they like to eat things. And when people eat things, they like to drink beer. So it was kind of like marriage made in heaven. So yeah, that was why they called them beer nuts. And we're selling them around. I feel like I got to look this up. I love kettle corn. It sounds like beer nuts is the kettle corn of peanuts. It's both sweet and salty.
I mean, other nut brands do sweet and salty nuts.
It's true, but they're not beer nuts. I need to have America's favorite nuts, Chris.
I feel like we haven't voted on that.
How would you even vote on that? It feels so regional.
I just think Mr. Peanut and Planters are more popular.
I don't know. I think they just have better market reach.
You've never had beer nuts.
This is true. But that's because I'm not from Illinois. If I lived in Bloomington, I think I would have grown up on beer nuts.
You can't be America's favorite anything and only be available in Bloomington, Illinois.
Oh, well, this is probably going to blow their cover a little bit. They're America's favorite nuts, but I looked up where I can buy them in the Portland area. And the place where I have to go buy them is at Cost Plus World Market. So they might be America's favorite nut, but I have to go to some sort of international market in order to find it.
If you've been affected by the issues on this show, if you also happen to walk kind of awkwardly, or if you'd like to ask us anything, get in touch with us. Our email is info@itsjustashow.com, and we're on Blue Sky. Either way, we'd love to hear from you. This show is made possible by listeners like you and like our randomly selected supporter, Luke. Thank you, Luke. For about $1 an episode, you too can be like Luke and help us research and record this show. You can join us in a friendly Discord, and you can listen to all our superfan bonus bits. Find out more at itsjustashow.com/Patreon or patreon.com/itsjustashow. And if you want to follow up with anything that was mentioned today, you'll find links in our show notes at itsjustashow.com/episode/185.
Well, Chris, we've had a lot of talk about the origins of MST3K, but I assume we can't keep talking about first forever. What's coming up next?
Indeed, we are going to skip right ahead to Season 6, Episode 3, The Dead Talk Back, with the short, The Selling Wizard.
The Dead Talk Back? It sounds like we should have done this in October, Chris.
They got a lot of vaguely horror movies on MST3K. But until then,
Joel, is it possible for a robot to be bored?
I'd be tired too if I had to wear a diving board on my head. Take it away, Theme Squad.
Everything is beautiful. There's zero nature